You're listening to The Social Workers on WCDB Albany.
And welcome back. You're tuned into the Social Workers live radio talk show here on WCDB Albany. My name is Eric Hardiman, and I'm back here again in the studio with Alyssa Lotmore, my co-host. Welcome back, Alyssa.
Hey, Eric.
It's another good day here at the Social Workers. We've got another interview lined up, and live in the studio we have with us today Stephanie Deyo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, you are.
Stephanie is the training coordinator of the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee, also known as the SDMC program at the New York State Justice Center for the Protection of People with Special Needs, where she advocates for timely medical care for individuals with disabilities. Stephanie is responsible for recruiting and training volunteers who serve on the SDMC panels to make medical decisions on behalf of individuals who lack capacity and have no authorized, available, and willing surrogate to act on their behalf. In addition to her role at the Justice Center, she volunteers at Ellis Hospital Child and Adolescent Outpatient Treatment Center, providing counseling services to children and families through a structural lens. Prior to joining the Justice Center, she worked as an outreach specialist for the Homeless Action Committee outreach van for 2 years, advocating and connecting individuals to services in the community. Additionally, she has several years of experience working with children who have autism, supporting them with social and emotional development. Just this past May of 2019, Stephanie obtained her Master of Social Work degree from the School of Social Welfare here at the University at Albany, so she's an alum. Stephanie has always had a passion for working with vulnerable populations and educating others to ensure individuals with disabilities and mental health disorders receive fair and equal treatment. Welcome to the Social Worker, Stephanie. We're glad to have you here in the studio with us.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yes, and Stephanie also got her BSW from the School of Social Welfare as well, because back when I was working with undergrads, Stephanie was a student. So welcome back. It's been a while, but a lot has happened since then.
Yes.
A double alum. We always like on the Social Workers to have alumni here at the show, and it's important for us to keep former students connected and students that are now social workers in the community, and you're a great example of that, so welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's jump right in, and can you start talking a little bit about the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee and the Justice Center and sort of the work that you're doing?
Yes, most certainly. So as Eric had kind of described in my bio, the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee program is an alternative to the court system for individuals with disabilities for major medical treatment. So our program, SDMC, is authorized to make non-emergency medical care treatment and end-of-life care decisions for those who qualify. And so if someone doesn't have the capacity and they don't have a family member or a surrogate to act on their behalf, then they can come to our program, and actually volunteer panels are making the decisions for these individuals. And it's a cost-free program, and it's more personalized because it's not in a court system. And most of the time, it can actually be in the individual's home or in a setting that's convenient for the provider. So it's a very innovative program.
So we'll get to the question that I have about, sort of what these panels are and who's on the panels. But before we even get to that, what types of decisions are we talking about here?
So it's different. So we provide major medical decisions and then end-of-life care decisions for certain individuals. So I think it's important maybe to cover who, is eligible for our services, maybe before we get into what types of services. So we provide services to individuals receiving services through the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, Office of Mental Health, and the Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services. So the two types of services, major medical and end-of-life care. So for major medical, we can provide decisions for anything that is invasive, so anything that would require an incision or be discomforting and cause a lot of pain. Anything that's going to require anesthesia, a procedure that's going to cause a significant risk, such as colonoscopies and endoscopies. And then on the other side of that, for individuals with an intellectual or developmental disability, we have the jurisdiction to provide treatment for the withdrawing and withholding of life-sustaining treatment. And we were actually granted that jurisdiction through the Healthcare Decisions Act in 2008.
Interesting. Okay, and this is the SDMC, or how should we say it? The Surrogate Decision-Making Committee is a program under the umbrella of the Justice Center.
Yes. So SDMC is under the New York State Justice Center for the Protection of People with Special Needs, and our unit is actually specifically under the administration of the Office of Outreach, Prevention, and Support. And the Justice Center as a whole is committed to ensuring that people with special needs are protected from abuse, neglect, and maltreatment. And the SDMC program upholds that mission because we're working to make sure that individuals with disabilities are receiving the timely, the medical care that they need in an appropriate and timely manner.
So who's eligible for services? I know you talked a little bit about those with special needs, but how does your office get involved?
So typically, our office would get involved because a provider would indicate that an individual needs maybe a colonoscopy, right? And this person doesn't have the capacity or a surrogate to receive, to have somebody act on their behalf. So the provider would contact SDMC, and we would help them understand, are they eligible for our services? And then they would actually submit a case to us. And the cases for major medical would be a 200 series case packet. And then for end of life care, it would be a 300 series packet. And for eligibility, it's typically going to be if the individual has currently or previously received services through a residential program operated or funded by OPWDD, OMH, and OASIS. But we actually have a video on our website that does explain eligibility factors and who's eligible. So if anybody's listening and you're curious to who is eligible for our services, I definitely advise you to go on our website, watch that video, or even give SDMC a call because it can differ.
Okay. And you are the, I think your job title is that you are the training coordinator.
Yes, I am.
So tell us about that a little bit. What's the training piece here?
So the training piece is both on a provider end, helping providers understand, our process and how to complete our forms, but also training the volunteers who serve on our program. When this program was created, it was actually created as a pilot program in 1986 because there was concerns with untimely, response to the medical care that individuals needed. So after the pilot program was was in place, they, saw that this proved to be a very successful program. But they wanted to make sure that the volunteers serving in our program, were specialized and had an understanding of the care and treatment that were needed for individuals with disabilities. So in my role, I also train volunteers on our hearing process, like what our process is for major medical hearings, and then also what our process is for end of life care decisions. Okay.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, and because our program is also regulated by laws and regulations, so we also have to follow the laws, and that's what we're also training the volunteers on. What governs our program, and what is our process.
Sure.
So who can serve as a volunteer, and how does that work?
So when the New York State legislature created our program, they decided that volunteers should be from 4 different categories. So the first category is a New York State health care professional. So that could be a physician, an RN, or even a clinical social worker who has, who's interacting with individuals with disabilities in a medical capacity. A New York State licensed attorney, a family member, or a former patient, and then the last position is an advocate. So the individuals, the volunteers who serve on our hearings are from one of those 4 categories.
And do you have difficulty recruiting volunteers? I mean, I'm thinking that the physicians might be, for instance, busy and difficult to get onto a volunteer situation like this. How do you actually get the volunteers?
So we work in multiple outlets, even with stakeholders to, do some recruitment. We actually have about 835 volunteers enrolled in our program currently, but we are always looking for volunteers because, as they're the ones providing the informed consent at the hearing. So we're definitely always in need of volunteers.
So how are the decisions made? So you have volunteers. Do they all have to agree? How does this process work?
So there's actually 3 determinations that the volunteers are going to look at during a hearing. So the first thing is they're going to see, does the person have the capacity to provide their own informed consent? Protecting their rights to, determine, does this person understand the proposed procedure?
Okay.
The second thing that the panel is going to look at is there an authorized and willing available surrogate that can, make the decision on their behalf? So is there a family member or someone that can make the decision instead of our, the SDMC program? And then the third thing that the panel is going to look at is the proposed procedure in the best interest of the individual? And they're going to be looking to the providers for that type of information. So, asking the RN or the physician, what are the risks and benefits of this procedure, to truly get an understanding of if this is going to be in the best interest of the person at hand. So volunteers individually vote, so they can vote on the 3 considerations and how they feel from the interaction of the hearing.
And is this all throughout New York State or just in the capital region?
It is across all of New York State. We actually have 6 regional contract coordinators in the different regions. And that's the good thing, too, because volunteers are all across from New York State. So it's very flexible in terms of who can serve and where you can serve, because volunteers can say, I'm in this county, I want to serve in this county this amount of days. So, yeah, we range across all New York State.
Great.
So what has this experience been like for you? As a social work student who, was going, when you were in school, you might have had an idea. I don't know if this idea was ever one that you wanted to do before, because I had never really knew about this program. So how did you go from a student, taking your classes, thinking about what you wanted to do, to what you're doing now?
So interestingly enough, I actually started as a student assistant with the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee program. But before starting with SDMC, I actually always thought I was going to be going clinical. I always wanted to be a school counselor. But after I got the exposure to SDMC and I realized that we were doing such a wonderful thing by advocating for people who don't have someone to make the decision and they can't make their medical decisions on their own and they need medical care, it just seemed like a wonderful position for me. I really liked talking with some of the providers, the volunteers, even being in some of the hearings, because I cover for some of the hearings once in a while, and being able to have that interaction with the patient. So it just really seemed like something that was for me. And I also had a background of working with individuals with disabilities before, so kind of the agency and my experience really aligned well.
And so going back even further, what got you interested in social work in the first place? How did your journey start?
So I always actually knew that I wanted to pursue social work as a career. Even going into community college, I went for human services, and then I went to undergrad and I did school social welfare. I think life experiences brought me into wanting to help others. And specifically, I wanted to actually work with children, and then I started working with children with special needs. And I realized that, a lot of the time individuals with disabilities are misunderstood. So I wanted to make sure that I could at least help make a difference and empower them and, protect their dignity and worth as a person too, to help them meet their true capabilities. So I think that's what really inspired me to go into this profession, to help others.
And it seems interesting to me that as a social work graduate and a graduate and alum, a graduate of our social welfare program, you are working in an area that it's new to me, but it's an area that sounds like it really exists at the nexus or the intersection between the healthcare system, the developmental disability perhaps system, the mental health system, the legal system. You've got sort of an intersection of multiple domains, for lack of a better word, and that sounds exciting. That to me sounds like innovative work. That you're really, rather than just focusing on one area, you've got something that really touches on a lot of different domains.
No, definitely. And, I even still work clinically also because I'm volunteering at Ellis and Child Adolescent Treatment Center. So I definitely like getting different perspectives from all areas. And I have to say, I do like the law portion of it too, being able to understand the laws and regulations that govern our program, to show why we're doing what we're doing. What's the history of why the SDMC program was created, and why is there so many people, that need our program. So.
And are there similar programs in other states? I mean, is this part of a larger national context?
From my knowledge, I have to be honest, I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that our program is pretty unique.
Okay. And another question, just as a researcher, I'm always curious, is there research being done?
For the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee program. I know that actually there are some scholarly articles about the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee program, so you can definitely look up some information. But there's also previous case law in regards to, some of the cases that had gone to the court system in regards to, why our program was needed. So there's definitely literature out there. Current research, I'm sure someone's doing some research.
Yeah. I'm just thinking because it's important in this type of work to document the successes that you're having and to be able to, certainly for policymakers and for the legislature and even for the general public to have a sense that that this type of work is important and that it's having an impact on individuals' lives.
Most certainly.
Now, do most physicians know to contact, like, let's say you said a lot of the referrals come from a physician, somebody who is, trying to provide a medical service, and they're a little concerned that the patient does not have the ability to make the decision for themselves. Do all physicians know about this program, or is there still types of trying to spread the word to physicians? Okay, if you have a case where you're not sure, what do you do?
No, I mean, most certainly we definitely try to inform providers of the services that we provide, because I think that is part of the issue too. If someone isn't aware of our program, then an individual might not be receiving some of the services that they are eligible for. So it's really getting the word out there, connecting people. And a lot of actually our cases come from residential centers. So a lot of the times it's like an RN or it's a case manager who's submitting the packets. So we really try to work with different providers to let them know, hey, SDMC is a service that some of the individuals you're serving might be eligible for.
So how long does a typical hearing last?
So it's usually about 30 minutes, and what happens is the volunteer serving on the panel will actually receive, we call it the declaration. It's the case that the declarant would submit. So this is someone who knows the individual and has all of the documentation that we're going to need, like their certification on capacity, certification on need for medical treatment. So volunteers get the packet, they review it before the hearing, and then the hearing usually takes about 30 minutes in total.
Okay.
Great.
And a decision is issued at that point. So that's the nice thing about our program, too. At the hearing, typically a decision is issued. The only time a decision wouldn't be issued if the panel felt like they needed a little bit more information, then there might be a little bit of a delay, but then we would be able to hold a conference call just to follow up on whatever information they felt they needed.
And you mentioned when you were talking about who serves on the panels that there are 4 categories, and one of the categories I believe you said was either family member or a former client.
Yeah.
Do you get much? Do you get many volunteers in the way of former clients? I mean, is there a what I would call sort of a peer component, where someone who has maybe been through a hearing themselves before, or who is a person with a developmental disability themselves, or a person who has been in need of services before, then returns to participate in a panel?
So I have to say I'm not entirely sure, but I'm also not sure if someone writes that on there, so I'm not sure if I would know if they were a former patient. But we definitely get a lot of family member categories.
Okay.
People who are caring for individuals with disabilities, and even advocates. Families are usually very interested in our program and want to help other people the way that, maybe their child or, cousin is being helped. So.
Right. What's the next phase of this for you? I mean, I would imagine the organization is thinking into the future and thinking about where do we go from here. So for you personally, professionally, where do you see yourself heading? But also, what are the sort of looming issues and opportunities?
So for me personally, I think I will definitely be with the SDMC program for a while. I really love the work that I do, and I love the people that I work with. So that's always a plus, right? But additionally, I think, I would also like to do some clinical work on the side too. So after I do get my license, I plan on doing some maybe private practice down the road. I know that will take a while because, the credentials for that are a lengthy process, the supervision and everything. But specifically working with some families and children. So that's something that I definitely plan on doing. But I think as a program, it's just to continue to inform people that our services are available so that people, individuals with disabilities, their care is, getting received in a timely response and their care isn't being delayed. So continuing to inform people and continuing to improve processes, because that can always be done, right? We can always improve how we're doing things to make it more efficient and to reach more people.
So for anyone who's interested, or a provider who's like, oh, I never heard about this, how can people contact you, or what is the best way for them to find out more about the SDMC and trying to make connections to you?
Yeah, so if someone, is interested in learning more about our process, what forms you would need to complete for a medical request or who's eligible, you can definitely go to the Justice Center website. You would go to www.justicecenter.ny.gov, and there's actually an SDMC landing page where they can look at request a decision, and they can go on there and learn more about our program, our process. There's videos on there that explain, who's eligible, how to complete the 200 series form. And then for volunteers who are interested, there's also another landing page on how to become a volunteer. So definitely go on there too. We actually have an online training if you wanted to become a volunteer. So it's very convenient because you can do it at your own convenience. And there's training modules that someone can go through.
All right.
So if you just tuned in, we're wrapping up our conversation with Stephanie Deyo. Stephanie is the training coordinator of the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee, or the SDMC program at the New York State Justice Center for the Protection of People with Special Needs. And it's been really fun talking with you, Stephanie, and learning about the program. It's certainly an important program, and it's a program that I would imagine folks out there need to know about.
Most certainly.
So thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with? Any points or any last final things that we should know about either the Justice Center or the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee?
Well, one of the things I would say is if you've never heard about the SDMC program, please, go to our website and learn more about us. And even the Justice Center, we have lots of different programs to support individuals and families. So go on our website, look at the resources we have, the supports, and if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, please go to our website and submit an application and complete the online training. Again, you can find the website at www.justicecenter.ny.gov.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being on here today.
You're listening to The Social Workers on WCDB Albany.